Okay, hello guys, and sorry for the difficulties. It's great that you would like to join us. Stefan Lindegaard. I'm here to talk today about expanding your growth mindset. And some of you already know my background is very much within leadership development and corporate innovation. So I'm going to talk about the growth mindset in that context here. Next slide, Raiden, please. Yes, and here we go. So in this context, I'm working what I call the Growth 3 methodology, and this is still work in progress. And I'm very open for your input and feedback once you listen to this, and maybe we'll find some ways to work together. And also, as kind of like a reminder or introduction here, you can get all the materials I use. If you like my images, you can get this, and you can of course get the deck. And if you have any question or comments, just get in touch. This is a pretty big topic, and I will only touch the surface of it, but I hope it gives you an idea. I hope it gets you curious, and I hope it gets you to think and reflect. But basically, what I do in the Growth 3 methodology is that I focus on the growth mindset in individuals and teams. I very much go in and work with leaders in general, executives and leadership teams, but also leaders of innovation or shaping their future initiatives, and I help organizations with growth systems here. Next slide. So, in a short introduction, let's go in and look into what we actually talk about mindset, and just go to the next one, Raiden. Because when we look at mindset, I'm of course very much inspired by Cal Drake, who's like the originator of the term and the concept, the approach of the growth mindset. And when we're going to look at what she looks into, the mindset is more like defined as this mental frame or lens that organizes and encodes information. And what I really like to take out of this one is that our mindset is like the sum of our thoughts and beliefs, and this not only determines how we see the world and how we make sense of ourselves in the environment, but what's more important is how it actually shapes our behaviors. And I really see, working 25 years now with corporate innovation, how behaviors is one of the biggest drivers, but more importantly so, and unfortunately so, also one of the biggest barriers to actually making innovation happen. And that's something I've been addressing for a long time, the behaviors towards innovation in our organization. And now for the last 6 months, I've been working on more the growth mindset approach into this one. But this is kind of like the introduction to mindset in general. Next one. Because if we go in with the Cal Drake work, we of course have the growth mindset, but the opposite is the fixed mindset. And as you can see, there's some elements here. First, there's lots of ways to describe this one, and there's lots of literature out there. There's Cal's own literature, and there are lots of articles and blog posts to look into. But just to sum it up, when you go and look at the growth mindset, it is this belief that intelligence and how you behave around what you know and want to know is something that can be developed, which creates this desire to learn. And here you see some of the behaviors above in the growth mindset. And when you go in and actually mirror this one toward the fixed mindset, the challenge here is that when you have the fixed mindset, it's more the belief that intelligence is static. I mean, it's kind of like you have what you have, and you cannot really go in and grow too much. Of course, you can always grow a little bit, but not too much. And interesting here, it leads to more like a desire to say that I'm very good at what I can do, and I want to look smart. And it actually gives you some behaviors, as you can see in the fixed mindset. Next one, Raiden. So let's go in and just, this is a very quick introduction to the mindset thing, but if we go in and put it in a context of leadership, innovation, and systems, and the next one, we can see that there is some elements to have in mind. Just the next slide, Raiden. There are some elements to have in mind, and those of you who follow my work know I've written a lot about why top executives struggle with innovation, and I also worked a lot with the common challenges for corporate innovation, And some of the common challenges for corporate innovation is the setup of innovation programs have not really been ideal, and there are things that you should change, but you don't really change it because of the legacy around this one. There's the elements of the corporate politics for corporate innovation. There's also the talents and teams for innovation. Do you have the right setup for this one? And then, of course, also the execution versus the organization capability. So when we go on and take these two main frames here, the leadership angle and the corporate innovation angle, there's a few notions to have in mind, and also some thoughts and some pointers on where we can apply the growth mindset. First, I'm really getting to the point that we cannot make any lasting change unless we start from the top. I mean, the last 15, 20 years, and I've seen corporate innovation team really try to push what they do, and I really like the guys working with corporate innovation. There's some great people out there, but the frustration is so thick. I mean, there's just like, you cannot really do, or at least the potential you have with these corporate innovation teams, and the frustration just builds up. And the only way we can actually make it better is that when we start from the top, we need to educate the top. We need to give the top better tools to go in and actually work with this one. And if you go over and look at the snapshot on the focus points that we need to address, and also where I believe we can go in and work with the growth mindset, the critical one here is the day-to-day activities, managing the day-to-day activities versus shaping their future. That balance is just off today. It's not uncommon that executives and key people in any large organization, they spend 80 to 95% of the time of their resources. They spend that on managing day-to-day activities, and only 10, 15, maybe even 5% being spent on shaping their future. And it's not going to cut it today. It's not enough, and we really need to go and adjust this one. And no, I don't say we need to go 50-50. But we need to get something like 70% managing day-to-day activities, because yes, this is actually the most important thing for an organization today, but we need maybe 30%, 40% focus from all executives, not just one or two, but the entire executive team. They need to a higher degree to go and work also on shaping their future. The mindset is just not there right now. And we could actually go in, when I say educate the top and give them better tools, working with the growth mindset could be a way to actually get in and actually start doing this one. And also the focus points, because part of when you have to change the executives and the top, it's very much about how we work with stakeholders, how we identify, how we actually manage our stakeholders, how we work with them to reach the objectives for the people trying to push better capabilities for innovation and for shaping their future. And knowing whether the people you work with, your stakeholders, have a fixed or growth mindset will actually give you better explanation why they behave as they do. And I don't say we have to stereotype people and put them into boxes, but we need to understand why they do what they do. And if we don't put enough effort into understanding this one, it's going to be like a windmill. You can try to push it back, but it just keeps going, and you will not change anything here. This also goes into that when we want to go in and build organizational capabilities for innovation, it has to start from the top. If they do not get personally involved and personally committed in actually supporting this and building these organizational capabilities for innovation, it doesn't really matter. And the challenge we see here, and again driven from the top down, is that everyone buys into the idea at the high level that we need accelerators and incubators. We see that works in other places. We see they have incubators and accelerators at other places. Anything that has to do about getting ideas, lots of ideas, and getting them fast, getting to market fast is something that everyone wants to invest in. But the challenge is that there's way too much focus on the execution of innovation and too little of building the corporate capabilities, organizational capabilities for innovation. And by this, I mean training of people. I mean knowledge management infrastructure that's much better today, and infrastructure to work with external partners. We don't have these capabilities in place in many organizations today, and this gives us this off balance here. And again, this is just some focus points and a few challenges that we see in actually applying the growth mindset into these challenges and issues that I've been working on for so many years now. And I'm really getting quite excited because growth mindset is, change is hard, but the growth mindset is actually appealing. I mean, people like the idea, like the concept, and if we can use this as a way in to start building this lasting change, maybe we can really get to some traction and get things better in the context of being better on an organization level to shape the future and for innovation. Next slide, Ray. When we speak about these things here and also about leadership, about 5-7 years ago, we saw the development of this new role, which is called the Chief Growth Officer. And basically, the way I see it and the way I would like to position it, and also what's happening in many organizations, is that exactly because the balance between managing day-to-day activities and creating the future, shaping the future is off, we need someone who can in and really supplement and complement the CEO on this here. And if by default in many organizations today that the top executive, the CEO in particular, is focusing on managing day-to-day activities, we need a very powerful second person, and that could be the Chief Growth Officer. And we're starting to see this in many organizations. You actually remove the Chief Marketing Officer in some of the industries mentioned here, and you get the Chief Growth Officer. And I would actually advocate for dual CEO, but I know in part because of practical issues, maybe also ego issues, we will not get dual CEOs in many organizations, but we could have the CEO and the Chief Growth Officer to go in and supplement each other. And you can go in and get some inspiration here. Again, you're going to get the slides so you can read it more. And I can also share some posts on this one, or you can check out the Russ Reynolds report on the Chief Growth Officer. Next slide. And what we need to go from what I said in the growth 3 methodology is from growth mindset more into the individual level. We also need to get to the leadership. And then at some point, we need to see how we can actually create growth systems in organizations. And here I will point you to neuro leadership and their Your Brain at Work block. They're probably the one that have the most experience and the best approaches to do this in a more systemic way. And they also work very much with Microsoft. And those of us who've been around know that 10, 15 years ago, Microsoft were kind of looked like they're losing it and getting behind, but they really changed that organization. And Satya Nadella is actually crediting a lot of that to the growth mindset approach. And he actually had a very catchy phrase related to how they actually applied the growth mindset there. Don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all, because this really go in and say that it's about the development that we need to focus on. And also the next slide. We also see this is actually happening in some large organization. And I've been visiting the UAE, Dubai in particular, a lot. And what's interesting is that when it comes to government-driven innovation and just changes for our government and digitalization by government, you're going to be blown away what the UAE is doing. It's pretty cool. And the last thing they started about 6 months ago is to actually go in within the entire country, the Emirates, to go in and create a growth system. And they're really starting to build this out. And here you see 6 of the elements they currently work with: growth journeys, growth mindset, experiments. And you can see some of the key inspiration points to look at here. It's from performance to growth journeys, hierarchy to growth management. So they're actually developing not only a system, but a whole way of interacting and working together, where they're not only changing the language, but also how you measure things. And this is really interesting to follow. And this is something I believe we're going to see more and more of in the coming years. The reason being that we need to change how organizations work today and how they're organized today, because they're just too slow, too rigid. I mean, most of the large organizations you guys work for have a structure that's been around for the last 200 years, and it just doesn't cut it today. A good thing with the COVID-19 is, again, that everything is up for reflection now, and there's a window of opportunity where a more future-looking executive can see how can we change organization based on what's happening the last 6 months and will happen the next year, I believe. We will see some interesting openings for for go in and do some interesting organizational changes. And what they do in the UAE, this is going to be very interesting to look into. Next slide, ready? And next one. Because I would like to just very quickly give you some reflections and also want to show you some very simple exercises. And again, this is a very short session, so we don't really have time to go in and do them now, but again, you get the slides, you can go look into it. And here is actually just some discussion starter on your mindset, some questions given. For instance, I was working with you guys or coaching you and your team. These are some of the starting questions I would like to get into. And yes, some of you might say there's something off here. A few of these are actually kind of trick questions, and I'm not going to tell you now, but if we meet later on, if we do this exercise, of course I'm going to describe this one here. But again, these questions here hopefully will get you to reflect and get started on your growth mindset. And next slide, Brady. Because this then leads into more like an exercise, and I'm asking you 5 questions, and you need to go in and reflect on what you've actually been doing primarily at work related to your career for the last year or two. And you can take the reflection first, the one simple exercise before. Now you can do this one, and then you can get a scale, and of course be honest, because that helps you the most. It can help me help you the most if you're honest here. And then you go in and actually get kind of like an indication, a quick and dirty assessment whether you have a fixed or growth mindset. And here's actually an important element. We all have a hybrid mindset, and I really believe that in some situations we really have a growth mindset, but there can be others we have a fixed mindset. I mean, Raiden asked me just before this one, so do I know any Irish song? And my natural reply here, I don't know how to sing. I can't sing. And that's a fixed mindset I actually exposed right there. Could I learn to sing? Yes, I really believe it. But my first response was still, hey, no, I can't sing. So again, it's very situational. And I do believe that people working in the fields of shaping the future and innovation in general have a high level of growth mindset, but it's situational. So in some situations we have a fixed one. The key is that the people that surround us, the ones that we try to work with, especially on the top, on shaping the future, more of these people, more traditional, and will have more of a fixed mindset than a growth mindset. And the behaviors around this one, we need to understand this better to get around, to work around this one and get some better output. Next slide. And this one is just for you to consider the science of your growth mindset. I use myself as an example, and when you read through this, you can go in and say, what can I actually say about myself that would state that I have a fixed or growth mindset, primarily more of a growth mindset. Next slide. And now we're going to look into action plan and next steps. And in the next one, Raiden, I actually have a slide that gives you some suggestions on what you can do here. And we're also going to wrap up pretty soon here in a few minutes, and then we're going to go more into Q&A. So you can, of course, ask questions around these things here. But as said, we're going to just scratch the surface and go through this one kind of fast. But I see this, I mean, reaping the benefits of a growth mindset, it's a lifelong journey. But if you want to get started in a more structured way, this is what I'm kind of focusing on right now. Again, work in progress, but I think there's some elements here, hopefully you can be inspired by and use and learn. I'm actually putting together a starter package, so which would be Goodreads, links, and exercises, my images of this one. So shoot me an email, connect on LinkedIn and shoot me an email, or write me on LinkedIn if you're interested in get this one. It should be ready in the weekend. And this will also include exercise, because I do believe that you need to get some kind of assessment of where you are. The next one is mapping your situational behaviors. And mapping your situational behaviors is important because, again, we have the hybrid mindset. And what I'm working on right now is some kind of matrix model that will allow us to go in and see that that I actually tend to have a growth mindset in these kind of situations, and I tend to have a fixed mindset in these kind of situations. So I'm working on a tool to help us go in and do this. And I believe it's going to be helpful because, again, the key around the mindset, whether it's yourself or the people that surround you, is behaviors and knowing and navigating this one. The wisdom is one of my favorites one because I don't believe in loyalty, that you guys have loyalty in the organization you work with. You don't have loyalty towards your company. It's pretty much today, the loyalty is towards yourself. And you can just ask someone having a great job somewhere. They can have the same job somewhere else and they like where they are, but they can have the same job and the same settings, but they'll get double the pay. Most people, 90% will shift here. It's about me. The thing here is that everyone has a wisdom question, that what's in it for me? It's kind of like the driver. It could be either because you have ambitions, maybe leadership ambitions. It could also be because it could also be more about that you try to go in and have more like a work-life balance. It could be a third thing, but all of us, we have one, maybe two, but primarily one that's kind of driving what we do at work and in our career. And if you can actually identify first your own, but more importantly around your stakeholders, if you can get a better idea of the rhythm for your stakeholders, it becomes so much easier to navigate together with them to go in and create better results. The future now, 3 years ahead, and vision look like, and then reflect, and you go in and work backwards, and you go in and look at the changes. If you want to be here 3 years from now, how can you work backwards and see what you need to adjust here? And one thing is, and I often do this exercise about your network. I mean, it's pretty interesting to see how people's network is usually geared for today and not the near future. So you surround you with people who you think, not even always, but you think can help you today, but you're very weak on how they can help you get to the next levels, your within or your 3 years goal. Your network is just not geared to that. I've done enough of these exercises to see that's actually an interesting challenge we need to work on. Again, I talk about the stakeholders, and yes, someone wrote that Ikigai is a fantastic concept. I really love the Ikigai. And I also believe that maybe if you're going to look at the Ikigai here, which is a Japanese concept, I mean, the reason for being, and it goes in and look at some elements. What are you good at? What do you like to do? What can you be paid for? And then you can go in and find your Ikigai in the spot here. Not all of us will be able to find the Ikigai, but as a guidance and also combined with the growth mindset, there's some interesting elements to look into here. So this would actually be an action plan here. You can start with 1, 2, and 3, but you can of course also jump forth and back in this one. But I hope this can give you some inspiration. Let's wrap up on the next couple of slides, Raiden. So just on the wrap up, some observations of the growth mindset, and also go back to what I said was one of the trick questions. Actually, we're not a natural at something, and there's something we're better at, but it's more because of we've been interested in it, and we really decided this is something I care about, I want to grow with it. And if you actually reset your mind and say that, hey, I can actually learn to sing, and most likely you will progress. It's not necessarily you're going to be great at it, but you're going to get better. Again, the mindset thing here. Go for the ride. Results are great, but personally, I really believe the journey is even better. And if you have that approach, well, you are going to have some opportunities within the growth mindset. So there's some elements here. The last one is I talk about behaviors matter, but the last one, be careful with these labels. I mean, don't go around and say, oh, this person is really pain in the ass, and that means it's a fixed mindset and you cannot work with that person. We all have the hybrid. So it might be that person is difficult to work with in this area, but if you actually create a different setting, a different environment, again, the leadership challenge is here is creating a different environment with your employees. You might actually set up a growth journey for that person that everyone can benefit from. And I also bet you that even though if a person is not really an asset in one area, you can find areas where that person can really contribute because they have a personal interest in it. So I believe we can work more with the mindset and going to change things here, but more on this later. So the last slides, ready? Next one. So I'm actually in the early stages of creating what I call a growth leadership program. And I plan to do this in select cities and countries around the world. And I would be happy to come and work with you guys in Ireland. I already tried to do some things last year with you guys, and would love to come back more. And hopefully I'm also going to kick off with some partnership with RDI. We're talking about doing a workshop or some sessions in Q4. And maybe I can also go in and with you guys listening in and RDI and creating a growth leadership program if there's interest for it. The next one. So just my last selling point here, I do actually really like to coach people and teams. If you like these things here, and if you like my approach and thoughts of these one, I do actually offer one or two of you like 3 or 4 hour free coaching sessions and preparation others. So if you would like to take me up on that one, send me a short note on why you think I can help you and what your challenge issue are, and I will select 1 or 2 of those, and I'll help you just to get started. And this actually sums it up. You can get in touch on me best on LinkedIn, but my website, the community I'm trying to create there, I'm sorry it's not really working yet, but you can join and I'll get it up and running soon. And great, now I hope this worked. It's kind of awkward just sitting here speaking to a screen, but I hope you guys also listening, that it worked for you guys, and I hope we can get the questions to work as well.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you
Great,
hear me?
thanks. I've just been allowed to unmute myself, I think, just to ask the question there that I posted in the Q&A channel. So my question was, I often, or too often, I feel that I'm pouring cold water on ideas that come up in my organization that I believe are unrealistic, and paranoid that I'm displaying a fixed mindset. Is there a way to identify if I'm just being too rigid in my thinking, or my kind of evaluation or my hunch about the ideas is correct and that they are unrealistic?
Well, the ideas themselves, what it sounds like is you need some kind of mechanism, some kind of system which you can actually spar with people on these ideas, and whether they're realistic and whether they're something you should pursue within your organization. I mean, you need a system, an approach in which you can actually take your ideas forward and discuss this with others. So first, find a way to get the system up and running. The second one is, do people in your organization have a growth or fixed mindset? I mean, that's the challenge, because to be honest, most organizations have lots of fixed mindset and lots of middle managers and senior VPs and top executives who just don't really get it, because their what's in it for me is not linked towards shaping the future. It's more linked towards managing day-to-day activities. So your challenge will be that even though once you get the system up, do you even get to speak with the right people who can see the value in your ideas and who can see a good way to bring it forward? I did hear some frustration in your question, but I can tell you you're not alone. There's lots of frustration around these issues here. And this is also where I have to say there are no quick fixes. I mean, I would actually say we need to go in many ways to start from scratch, go back, take some steps back, look what's not working in your systems, in your organization, and then you need to rebuild them. But the trick is, it doesn't really matter much you rebuild them if you have not educated the top and got them fully on board first. So there's lots of very difficult steps that you need to do first before you can actually start doing all of these things here. I'm sorry I can't help you more on this one, but yeah, feel free to shoot me some more specific questions on LinkedIn, and I'll try to help you there as well. It's a good job you're doing, Reddy. No one can hear you, and you still try to control it, but yeah.
Hello. Hi. Yeah. Hi, Stefan. Thank you. That was great and good food for thought. My question really is, Stefan, how can you split your time from your normal day-to-day tasks to get a system up and running in a smaller company, probably with not the resource and the employees to kind of dedicate a set officer or someone to team lead such a project?
Well, I think we need to separate how you do that prioritization, whether you are the leadership group, I don't know if you're in the leadership group yourself, or whether it's the leadership group you talk about, and whether it's the people below. Because the challenge is that if you don't get the acknowledgement and also the engagement from the top to allow people to spend more time on shaping their future, it will not happen. I mean, any behavior in an organization is driven by how your executives and the people around them actually reward you. And if you're rewarded towards managing day-to-day activities, that's what you get. So again, if you do not address the top, if you do not find ways, and yes, you have to be a little bit unconventional to make this happen, to get them involved here. But if you don't do that, it's not going to work. I mean, frankly, it's not going to work here. Some ways to do this one is again educating the executives, and there are some more elaborate ways in doing this one. If you work more on an individual level, what could you do to actually work more on shaping the future? That would probably be see if you can go in and well, get rid of some of your day-to-day activities or add extra time on shaping the future. Go in and create some small wins. Go in and create a data package, information which shows that what you're thinking about, the ideas, the initiatives you have, that you actually keep collecting information that not undermines, that backs your session, that this is something that's worth looking into. Because if you can get some underlying data, some information that backs that you're on the right track, you will force your executives going to say, yeah, there's a point here, and you make a good argument, and you can even document it. I actually think that you should be allowed to go on and work more on these initiatives, shaping the future initiatives, and hopefully they will then say that because you've been allowed to do this, well, we're going to take some of your day-to-day task off of you. But again, an organization works in the ways that it's being rewarded, and the reward system is driven from the top. So if their mindset is not geared to this, well, you have to find ways to change the top, or you have to find another organization.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Fergal here. So thanks very much for your talk, Stefan. Really enjoyed it. The question I had was, I suppose it's it's something I've observed over the last 20 years. You do hear leadership teams in all sorts of organizations calling for growth. Oftentimes, though, I found organizations celebrating, making something happen or achieving some kind of growth objective, often by celebrating the fact that somebody worked around or kind of broke the way the organization worked to make it happen. And yet nobody seems to sort of identify the irony in all of this and actually take the step back and say, well, if that's what has to happen in order to make our objectives or to find that path to growth, everything then tends to settle back down and organizations go back to business as usual. I wondered about your own experience of kind of both identifying that and talking to leaders about why that is, why they don't necessarily embrace changing those obstacles in organizations, and sort of an enabling rather than disabling. So I often see the gap between their desire for growth, but their willingness to break things or take the risks necessary to create the opportunities for it.
In some ways, you kind of describe my work and interaction for the last 10, 15 years. And that is the thing. I mean, everyone kind of sees that, hey, how can we create more growth? How can we go in and create better systems? But then they buy that one, but they really don't want to do the hard work of making this happen. And this is also where I kind of said that it doesn't matter. You know, we kind of look at it in two ways. So you've got barriers and obstacles towards shaping the future, and those are kind of like, oh, we work in silos. We don't have enough digital system. We don't work well enough in ecosystems, and you've got some barriers and obstacles, and those are things you can go in and try to fix, and you can adjust something, and it can get a little bit better. But those are barriers and obstacles. What you need to do is identify not only your barriers and obstacles, but you also need to go and identify what are your root causes for why this is not really working. Your root causes could be that, our leaders are actually not leaders, they're more like micromanagers. And that's a very hard truth, but that boils into something else. The root causes can only be addressed on the top leadership level. And this is where it's hard to have hard discussions. The undiscussable things is hard to have there because they don't really want to be questioned about. They've been in this business for 30 years. Are you going to tell me what I do here is not right for the future? And that's actually one of the root causes, that an organization can actually do all the right things for today and the past, but not for the future. And in the mindset of someone who created a very good machine that's worked well, organizational machine that works well for 20 years, but you start seeing signs this is not going to cut it for the future. Imagine the thing that's going to happen inside the heads of these people here. You're going to question what we've been doing. And by the way, I don't really care that much because all this technical or digital advancements that's happening now, it's too much. I'm going to retire in 7 years. I'm just going to ride it out. That, for many executives 55 and above, that's one of the key what's in it for me I see in organizations. Then what's in it for me, I'm going to ride it out until I'm going to retire. And how do you work around that one? But this is what I'm saying, that you do have barriers and obstacles, you have root causes, you need to identify both. You need to go and have a more systemic approach towards your stakeholders. You need to understand why they're positive, negative, and neutral, and why. And then you need to look, what can you do about it? And yes, there's some ways we can address this one. But, you know, I mean, you've seen this for many years, and so have I. It still baffles me how few organizations are really interested in having the hard conversations and going and make the changes happen. I mean, I've been waiting for this tipping point for quite some time now, and I thought things were going to get better like 5 years ago. Now, maybe it's going to get better in the next few years. Maybe it's going to take 10 years. Maybe it doesn't get better. One good thing about COVID-19, it's been tough in so many ways, but people are really starting to reflecting on how they go along with themselves and how they run their businesses as leaders. And hopefully this can be a driver for them to go and rethink some elements here, because the frustration that some of the questions expressed and that I'm expressing here, we need to do something different and unconventional to change this one. I'm talking in more general terms here, but I do hope I addressed part of your questions. If not, feel free again, all of you, to shoot me something more specific on LinkedIn and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Hi, Stefan. Niall here. Good talk. So I suppose one of the challenges I would see with introducing the growth mindset is if you're trying to change people with a fixed mindset in the organization, you probably want to avoid bringing in more people with a fixed mindset as you're going through that process. I'm just wondering, is there any, maybe not easy ways, but any sort of tips you'd have to identify people with a growth mindset as part of the interview process?
So one of the leading sources in this growth mindset field is the neuro leadership, and some of the things they identified is that employee engagement is something you can really change when you go in systemically and successfully work with the growth mindset. And what this actually ties into is the employee engagement is also how you hire people for the future. Personally, I developed a number of overviews in the context of leadership and innovation. How do we spot people with let's say, a better mindset for shaping the future, someone that you could work better with in your organizations. So new leadership has developed some insights and approach on this one, and identified that employee engagement, again, getting the right talent board is one of the key reasons for going and actually work with the growth mindset. And I have a list of tools and images also to identify people. But again, it doesn't really matter if you don't have the top on board willing to listen to this and go in and make the changes in how to recruit and work with talent. So there's some tools out there, but you only get the full effect when you do from the top down.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. So we are thumbs up done for today, or what does that mean, Randy? Hold on. Okay.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's Killian, yes. Thank you very much for the great talk. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
I've actually got a few questions there, but I'll just ask the first one there first. Is do you have like any team building exercises that you could enact and help develop the growth mindset with teams within your teams, and that you can see a benefit from? You know, do you have like an actual sort of, I don't know, like a team building exercise that could do that? And just the second part to that question, if there is it something that you can use with both your peer leadership team that you're involved in and also with the people that you are leading? Would there be a different way of putting that across?
Well, let's take the second one first, and maybe remind me of the first one later. But what I'm looking into right now is like a pyramid, or you can look at the loyalty systems at airports and airlines and hotels, where you have basic, then you have silver, gold, and platinum. So what we need to look at, for instance, when I did the first steps, the action steps, it starts more like an individual way. And I think that's something everyone needs to go into, whether you are a junior employee or a seasoned veteran, or whether you're a leader or a specialist. Everyone needs to work first on themselves. That's also why I start with the growth mindset, and then you have the growth leadership. But what we can do here is to start having the list of things you do more like fundamentals. And then I'm identifying right now a series of elements that you can work with more on the leadership things. So on the leadership things, and something that you can also go in and work with in terms of your first question to team building. First, how do you assess your team? And I really hope, actually one of the key elements of growth mindset is that you're very open to feedback. And people are constructive when they get negative feedback. If you can go in and create the right settings, then you can go in and do the assessments. And I have some tools I'm developing more for this, where you could go in and actually do the assessments. And then you can go in and have some open and fairly hard conversation of so it seems like you're more on the fixed mindset. And again, you can always pull it back a little bit and make it softer by saying that it's hybrid. In some areas, you have the fixed mindset. In others, you have the growth. But we need to focus right now, because the fixed mindset you expose in these situations here means this and this and this for our team in a negative way. So that's probably what I would do. The first, the introduction to the concept, I would go in and do the assessments individually. I'm going to do it as a team. I would go in and find out, how does this actually impact what your team is trying to do? And then, of course, the most important, what can you change to improve these things here? I'm not sure if it's a team building, but it's more like a team exercise to go in and deploy growth mindset and get better results based on this one. Does it make sense?
Yes, that does. Thank you very much. That was great. And can I carry on with the next question? I suppose I will. Yeah. Just to follow on what I think the gentleman was Fergal, that said something. He was talking about business that's been there around a long time and stuff. I believe that finding a middle ground. I believe that finding a middle ground with both structures is something that we could look at now. How is there a way of having the flexibility of the growth mindset, as well as that you talk about the hybrid, the flexibility of having the growth mindset as well as having the fixed mindset. Because let's be honest, the fixed mindset has, for like some businesses that run 100 years, 50 years plus, let's say, they've had that fixed mindset growth, but some of those structures still work. Is there a way of merging, and how do you merge the flexibility and the dynamic of growth mindset with some of those structures that have, you know, helped the business become a 50, 100, 150-year-old business?
It's a good question. And when I started my work on startups, entrepreneurship, and corporate innovation 25 years ago, I really wanted to change the whole world. I wanted to tear everything down and just rebuild. But as you get older and you also get wiser, you start seeing that no, we don't have to, and we definitely should not just tear everything down and rebuild. We have to go in and look at this in a very situational way. What do you have in this specific organization that are actually working quite well right now? And there can be some systems and processes in place, and they work, and you should keep them there. Because it's all about creating the right balance. That's also what I said, that it's not like we need 50-50 balance between managing day-to-day activities and shaping the future. It's more like 70-30 balance we need. It's still a big shift, but we don't need 50-50. And we need to respect the legacy, and we need to respect what actually working within an organization. And then we need to see how we can improve it. And for this to happen, it actually helps when you go out to some of the skeptics, and actually you're going to get lots of skeptics when you try change programs like these in organizations. You need to, you can actually win some of them over by acknowledging that some of the things you're doing is actually quite good. We're not going to change anything of it. Just let it be there. And that means that people go, oh, you're not going to change everything. You're going to be, and then you can start working from there. The key here is it has to be situational. It has to be about your situation. You need to make an analysis. What do we actually have in your organization that we can keep, and what can we change? Have some hard conversation about these things here. We can go a little bit back to Satya Nadella from Microsoft, who said it's not enough to have an organization full of know-it-alls. Now it's more about getting an organization of learn-it-alls. But that also implies that you keep learning, keep improving from what you already have in place. So yeah, good question. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, this is Liam here, Liam Cronin, the CEO of the RDI Hub. So I just wanted to close out today's session. So first of all, thanks everyone for the great questions that you've been asking to Stefan. I think it's been a fantastic webinar, fantastic session. I mean, I 100% believe everything Stefan has said there, because I suppose having worked at Microsoft for 25 years, Stefan, I was there when, you know, Microsoft had a very fixed mindset with when Steve Ballmer was there, and you know, kind of continuing to sweat the asset, and then to see how that changed when Satya came in, as you mentioned, and the move to the growth mindset, and how that's accelerated Microsoft's business on. So I think that's a fantastic example. You know, thanks Stefan for, I suppose, opening our minds today and getting us to think differently. And that's really, I suppose, what we really wanted to get across in this pivot series over the last 10 weeks is get people thinking differently about innovation and thinking differently about ideation and doing that. And I think your slides were excellent there in terms of getting people to move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, or even that hybrid mindset you mentioned as well as we go along. So thanks a million. I think Radine has probably put some of the details in there in the webinar. I must admit, I've never seen Radine as quiet and for an hour and stuff like that. Usually she's a lot more vocal. But thanks, Radine, for driving the Pivot series over the last 10 weeks. It's been an amazing journey for us. We're going to take a little bit of a break for the next month during August, and then as the plan is to come back with the Pivot series again on the 26th, 27th of August onwards. As we mentioned throughout today, you know, if anybody is interested in a more detailed interaction with Stefan, you know, either virtually or, you know, ideally if things move on with COVID-19, we may be able to have a face-to-face session in Killorgan or somewhere in Ireland. You know, would really like to help Stefan in terms of building out that whole growth leadership program that was mentioned. I know, Stefan, we discussed that in Dublin when you were over last year as well, as something we would love to support you on. So if anybody is interested in, you know, further engagement with Stefan or with any of the speakers we've had over the last 10 weeks, feel free to reach out to Radine, and you have her contact details, and sign up as well for our newsletter, so you'll get more information around what we're doing in the RDI Hub in Killorgan. But again, I just want to say thanks to Stefan for your time today. I know you're incredibly busy, very insightful as always. Thanks, Radine, for driving the Pivot Series over the last 10 weeks. And thanks, everybody, for attending and having some great questions and helping us drive this over the last while. And we'll be back on the 27th of August. So have a great summer, everyone, and we'll see everyone in August. Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, Radine.
Thank you very much. It was great being here. Take care, guys.